It looks like it is.
Ah,
There
now
we
I know.
go. There we go.
Right.
So, hey, I'm going to jump right into this. First of all, you got to, in case anybody doesn't know, I'm Darren from Guyana Home Hub. And we have started what we call the revolutionizing of real estate for all of Guyana. And if you've been to the United States and you've seen Zillow, you've been to South Africa, you've seen Property 24, you've seen all those good things. Well, that's what we're creating for Guyana. And we're creating it for all Guyanese, diaspora, and the people right in Guyana. And that's what I'm going to say about myself. But now, the person who probably doesn't need a lot of introduction, because I noticed you got a lot of followers on TikTok. You got quite a few on Instagram and Facebook too. And I was gathering around. I'm like, I said, man, I said, no, not little. Come on now. We ain't gonna be modest today. I want to hear everything from you. But she needs no introduction. But for those of you guys who don't know, and you follow my small following, now you're about to follow somebody else who's about to give you some of the greatest advice you guys have ever had if you're into real estate in Guyana. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your platform. I'm always happy to collaborate with anyone who is as passionate and intense is not passionate is the right word, not intense. You seem very focused and about the direction that you would like to go in and about your platform and what you wanted to do. So I'm always happy to get on board with someone like you. My name is Tiffany Durant. I am the co-owner of Durant Property Management and Real Estate Services in Guyana. And my following is very loyal. They see me outside all the time and they appreciate the advice, they appreciate the truth that I share on that platform. And though we may not always agree on what stance to take, I think they just appreciate that there's discourse. And I think that's what was missing. Like no one was talking. There's a lot of unspoken rules and
Mm-hmm.
unspoken ways to do things, but no one was talking about what actually is happening and what processes are possible in the Guyanese marketplace.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad you said that, and it's amazing because having a wife that's Guyanese, first of all, opened my eyes to a lot of things because I didn't know Guyana like I know now that I'm married to a Guyanese. We've been married for close to 16 years, so it's been a while now. So, and we have wonderful kids together, and all that is great. But when we came to Guyana, and I remember a few times we would come and there's some land in the back. A lot of family, diaspora have land a lot of times in Guyana. And my wife is no different, and but always looking for more stuff. She's always looking, and she's like, "Oh, we should buy more land in Guyana. We should do this. We should build a retirement home. All this good stuff." And I'll never forget, Tiffany. One day we were sitting, and a lot of people, who don't know the story of how Guyana Home Hub got started in the first place, we were sitting, and my wife was like looking at some stuff, and she had called somebody to go check on some property. And then she was like, I hate this. I was like, what? She said, how come it just can't be easy that I could just go online and just search for property in one place instead of looking at all these Facebook groups? And she's the one, I remember she used the word cousin. I got to call my cousin, go look. And I remember she said that. And I was like, huh. And then she said, you always on the computer developing stuff for other people. Maybe you should do something for Guyana. And a light bulb went off. And then I met a Guyanese agent here in the U.S. and he hinted something like that too. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we were talking about real estate. So I wish we had something." And I'm looking at him, and then I showed him Zillow. I said, "Something like this. You ever seen this?" He's like, "No, I've never seen anything like that." And he said, "That's what we need. That's what we need." I'll get into that later. But hey, let's get back to you. All right. I'm gonna get straight at it. Since you are in property management, I'm sure you see some of the craziest things. You
Yeah,
probably see stuff that people probably wouldn't even imagine happening.
yeah,
Because if I remember correctly, you're an attorney, am I correct?
that is correct.
So you not only see the property management from the ground, you up here looking at it from a legal standpoint too. So
That is
that
correct.
lends a lot of credibility. Let me ask you, and excuse me, what's the biggest lie? I'm going straight at it. What is the biggest lie a landlord tells tenants in Guyana?
Why you want me to sell out my landlords? Why
We
you
got to,
trying?
well, we no, I don't want you to sell them out. I just want you to call them out.
Um,
We're gonna keep we this how we're
one
gonna keep them on board forever.
not my landlords. My landlords
Okay.
don't do this, but I have been in cases where landlords have told tenants, yes, once you move in, that issue that you've noticed during your inspection period in your viewing the property, we will get that fixed. We will put in those grills on the window. We will we will put in a pavement there. That electrical wiring that's loose, we'll take care of that. Don't worry. That is one of the biggest, like, if you don't want the apartment as is, as the tenant, and don't necessarily believe when a landlord tells you it will be fixed, especially if there's no set timeline on that. For example, I was reading a contract for one of for my church, my pastor that I go, the church I go to, and it said we'll install the AC, but there was absolutely no timeline for doing so, and this was like a 5 year contract. So I'm like, so if he installs it at 5 years from now, technically, legally, he'll be compliant.
He did what he's supposed to do. Now,
But then,
look, I'm a
yeah,
landlord here in the States, Tiffany.
yeah.
I can say I've probably done that once or twice. And it's not even intentional. So it's not always that the landlord is doing it on purpose, but because he really means it at the time when he says it.
Don't we all? Don't we all mean it at the time we're saying it? Me too.
And eventually we get to it. I'm going to go on to another question.
Mhm.
And you got to excuse me. Every once in a while, I got to put my glasses on because they got all my notes written. But people say, "Oh man, your glasses glare too much." So maybe I need to invest and get some anti-glare glasses. But I gotta get more people on Guyana HomeHub to be able to afford those glasses. But we'll talk about that another day.
Very soon.
Hey, if diaspora asks you, "Can I trust buying property in Guyana from New York?" What would you tell them straight up? If they're in New York and they just want to buy some property in Guyana, what would you tell them?
I tell them, because I'm a lawyer, it depends. Yes, you could do it, but do you have trusted sources here in Guyana that you're doing that process through? For example, if you have boots on the ground here and someone who has power of attorney to you, do you trust that person to handle millions of dollars on your behalf
Mm,
to
mm,
make
mm.
sense to the relevant parties in the time span? I, for example, had a client who told me, yes, I want to go ahead with this. And as soon as the document is ready, I'll send the money directly to you. Because although my family is handling this, I can't
Mhm.
trust them with this amount.
Mm,
Like
mm.
there's really no consequence of if it is that they spend out your money. There's no consequence for them because when you do lock up your family, I mean, some of us will. But for the most part, um, you need persons that you trust on the ground. You need someone, a lawyer you trust here, real estate agent you trust here, an accountant. A lot of people forget that you really should be using an accountant if you're going through GRA and going through certain process, especially if you're selling. You need your mortgage provider here, someone who's in that system in a particular bank that you know and you trust and you can have conversation with that lead you in the right direction and won't just tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you the truth. And so you can make informed decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. So really, in Guyana now, and you here in the States, a lawyer's not always necessary. But what we find is when we get to closing, first of all, you can get in a lot of trouble. Let me just put it like that. First of all, you can get in a lot of trouble. You can't sell real estate without a license anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come to that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that's a big deal, and you can imagine I've experienced it already, and I kind of see what's going on in the back end. But yes, we don't have that problem as much. But when it's time to close, only lawyers for the most part are signing most of the papers, or there's a lawyer on staff at the closing at the office that's looking
Ah,
over the papers, or all the papers were drafted. So I get what you mean. I think that's anywhere you go. You really need an attorney to look at this stuff because buying a house, you're talking about in most people's case, it's the biggest purchase they'll ever make in their life.
correct.
And it's kind of like, why would you trust that to just handing over some money to somebody who says their house? I mean, we
Yeah.
know they'll say,
That
people say anything
that's
to get a dollar.
actually a conversation, and that's not even a diaspora thing. That's a conversation I had yesterday with a client who's in Guyana. He brought me an agreement to sale. I said, and he said he wants to pay some more money down. I said, cool, where's the transport? The guy never showed him the transport. I said, what? What do you mean? You've given him millions and you don't even know if he owns this property? Wild. And
So
that's
people do this.
people do this. And his response was, there are other persons, it was a couple acres. He's like, there are other persons who bought from him. I said, did you see their transports or titles? You saw they've received theirs? No, he hasn't seen theirs. He hasn't seen the owner's transport. But let me just give him a couple more million. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I
you
think you
got to
could
feel
tell I
bad
find
for them
this a
because
little
again,
frustrating.
yeah, and again on the legal end, you got to feel bad for them sometimes because they're still people, they're still humans, and they're working really hard for their money, and sometimes they just don't know.
I agree. And in particular in Guyana, there are lots of barriers around what lawyers are allowed to say on social media, etc., for it to be not construed as advertising. So
Hmm.
there's just isn't a level of education out there. And in most cases, lawyers' hands are tied from that in Guyana.
So that brings me to my next question, and you kind of answered it, but I don't know if it's answered all the way because there may be other things there. Why is it that the diaspora abroad seems so afraid to invest back home? Is would that what you talked about, is that really the number one reason, or are there other reasons?
One, yes, they don't have anyone trustworthy on the ground. Agree. That's, I think, the number one reason. Other reasons I think include the fact that there isn't any clarity. They don't know what is available for sale. That's where you come in. They don't know what are the price points, so they can't work out budgeting to see what it that they could afford back home. That's where you come in again. And
Hmm.
for me, I think also that some persons, because the marketplace is so, it's kind of like, not, it's not shrouded in secrecy more than there isn't just enough clarity, like for comparing prices and
Mm,
property prices and that sort of
mm,
thing. A lot of people
mm,
might be afraid, like maybe they get robbed.
mm,
Like,
mm.
there's that mindset around that too. So those
And
I
you know
think are
what?
the main reasons.
And I'm glad you said that, Tiffany, because someone else brought that to me. Actually, it was an agent in Guyana, and
Mm.
they said they noticed that you could. They said, well, not notice. I guess they live with this, but you could have a property next door. It'd be 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and then you go to the other property right next door, and it's 3 bedroom and it's 2.5 bath, but they want 10 million more to be in the house. And the house is in right next door. They look identical. There's no real difference. And they said that's how people feel. People will say, because they're going to find out you live there and you live there for years. Like, why am I paying so much more? But that's because what you just said, they don't really have a reference. There's nothing there. And here, again, it goes back to when you go to I like to say so-called developed countries because we're developed in some ways and other ways we're not really that developed. But that's, again, that's my opinion. So, what I will say is when you use the bigger platforms, they actually have what they call here, they call it a Zestimate. And it tells you what the property sold for. And you're probably familiar because you're familiar with doing business in the States. And they'll tell you a Zestimate. Or, they'll tell you, oh, this house sold for this, is this many bedrooms, and is this far away from this house, and is this many square feet. It was built this year. And recently, just since you brought it up, we recently put that on the back end of Guyana Home Hub. So on the back end of Guyana
Mm.
Home Hub, now it's starting to collect the data when a property is sold or when it's rented, it says how much it is. Now it could take years, to build up all this data to really know. But my hope is that eventually this data could be used for agents as we put out reports every month for the agents so they can inform the clients like, hey, this property over here rented for this and this one sold for this. And it just makes it better overall for the consumer. Your thoughts?
I completely agree. And
Mhm.
when I'm advising and consulting with a landlord about what price point we should list for, that is what I ultimately resort to. I show them this is in a similar area, this is the same amount of bedrooms, uh, this is the general condition of it, and this is what it rented for. So I'm not pulling these numbers out of thin air. Here's your
Mhm.
reference point, and here's why I'm advising you on this price point. And that's an internal system. So imagine if you have a system that covers the entire uh, of Guyana, we'd
Mhm.
be we'd be in a much better place. It may not be ready as yet, but the fact is it got started, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for thanking me, and I trust me. I'm just doing what you guys tell me because I'm no expert in Guyanese real estate. I'm If it comes to development, I got you, but I'm no expert in Guyanese real estate, and that's why I'm having this meeting with you. That's why I've talked to you off camera, and that's why I talked to a lot of agents off camera because you guys are really helping. It makes a tremendous difference when you get it from the Guyanese.
Okay. Can I pause? I hear someone rapping. My staff stepped out. Can I pause? Can we pause for like 3 minutes? Let
Abs-
me just see who this
let's do
is.
it. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it. I'm gonna let it keep recording, but go ahead. Hmm, this is great. Got to get the money. No.
Indeed. Indeed. Nothing true. No true words have ever been spoken. Yes.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to it. Like I said, by the way, I'll send over likely the full recording, so that way you can chop it up however you need to do it. I'm not sure how well Zoom does this, but I guess we'll figure it out, right?
Yes. They have an AI feature, right? That does it
Yeah,
okay.
it
Okay.
does. Do you ever use Zoom and put up recordings from Zoom?
I haven't. I've used it to record an interview and send to a landlord before, but never to for content.
Well, we'll
All
find out,
right.
right? That's all right. We'll find out. I think it'll be fine. Zoom's been
Okay.
around a long time. I'm gonna go ahead and jump
Okay.
into it. Okay, I
Yeah.
have another question for you. The oil money, there's a lot of it. I know it's a lot because I pay attention to what's going on. As a matter of fact, I just saw there's a big meeting coming up in the States. It's going to be in Houston. And I saw everything from the president to, I think it's Kathy Smith from Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. I was seeing different names. They're going to actually be there at this conference. And it's in Houston,
Wow.
Texas. And it's about oil. It's about natural gas. That's what the whole conference is about. And it looks like Guyana is kind of on the center stage for this conference coming up in Houston. So what is the diaspora missing? What do they not know and understand about pricing? What's going on with the economy in Guyana that they can't really see from Brooklyn or they can't see from South Florida? What's going on in real estate that they just can't see?
I'd say two main things here. One, you can look at the news article, but only when you're physically in that Guyana can you see the explosion of development that's happening. You literally can walk down the street on Saturday, and by Sunday, there's fresh construction going on in a location. There is
Mhm.
that seems to be such a primary driver in the economy right now in Guyana. You won't be able to see that sitting at home in Brooklyn. And to that end, there is this surge of energy. And this may sound I'm one of those persons who money is energy, time is energy, etc.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that explosion of energy, it's palpable in the air here. And because you see all of this construction development going on around you, more persons are like incentivized. I get a word right later. They
Close
also
enough.
want to be a part of that. They're also pulling out and putting up different businesses along every corridor. So that energy, that constant development is something that only when you're here you can feel and see and touch. The other thing is that most persons, I think, to my mind, most persons in diaspora are only looking at Demerara for development. When you look at the news, a lot of that is happening in Demerara. But being in the real estate space, I'm seeing an explosion in Berbice that they're carrying Georgetown prices. And I'm like,
Yes, yes.
you're thinking about quarantine as like, oh, a $20,000 house. Not anymore.
No, no, no. And I'm glad you brought that up. I noticed it too. It seems London, it doesn't really matter where you go.
Really, Dan.
Yes, it's
So you
going
think
on.
that it will be concentrated to Demerara or Georgetown? It is
Mm-mm,
not. The explosion
mm-mm.
is happening across Guyana, to one
Wow.
degree or another, and at a rate and pace that I don't think anyone who was here 5, 10, 15 years ago, I don't think he would have ever imagined it. I
No.
sometimes can't believe it when persons are said to be listed some Berbice and some parts of Essequibo. But it's true.
My own personal experience, I come every few months, right? Every 2 to 3 months I'm there. I remember the first couple of times I was coming, working with Guyana Home Hub. I guess before I kind of didn't pay attention. I was just, yeah, it's booming. I see all the trucks. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But then when I really started looking at it from a real estate perspective, and I was just like, what the heck? I was gone. And then I come back 2 months later and there's a huge structure. And I'm like, this building was not here before. And I mean, they're building fast. Yeah, it's just like, and you see all these workers and coming from the airport, you see more trucks than cars. That is insane to see more pick or what do you call them, dump trucks and more tractor trailers and logs, sand, dirt. I mean, it's just crazy. Concrete mixers. I'm like, it's way more construction vehicles than there are actual just, regular passenger vehicles. So yeah, I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad you were able to put it out there because now they can hear it from Guyanese and not think some American just talking that crap. But this is real talk, Tiffany. Am I telling
Real
the truth?
talk.
This is real.
All truth, 100% truth. Nothing but the truth.
So my next question, and I'm gonna just go ahead and get into this one because this is why I built Guyana Home Hub, and I want to ask you directly: Facebook Marketplace, WhatsApp groups, word of mouth.
Mhm.
In 2026, is that the way Guyanese should be doing real estate anymore?
there there will always be a home for those processes here because
Mhm.
there were like grassroots processes of how we even got started. However, as we develop and there are more international buyers, because now it's not only diasporas buying, persons who have absolutely no connection to Guyana and they're just investors looking for profits. Those persons are wanting to connect. And what has happened is that a few major real estate companies, your Remaxes, Keller Williams, they they kind of like concentrate where those investors come through those
Mhm.
portals. However, that only taps into a certain part of the real estate that's available, the agents who are available to assist those investors in finding the things that they want. So I think as we grow much, much more and as quickly as we grow, there needs to be one central body, one central place that persons from any walk of life can come get credible information. That's the other thing. That those other places that we've mentioned prior of your Facebook marketplace, they are so prone to scamming. That has become, like with great wealth, then suddenly scamming rears its head.
Mm. Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
Right. So, like, I have persons just recently, someone called me to say, um, we saw the video you posted online, and someone told us on Facebook Marketplace, someone told us to send them the MMG and I will get the apartment rented.
No way.
I said, what? I was like, we would never ask that of you. And I love when I was using your platform that you had that verification process where the
Mhm.
agents had to get two references to know that you are a legit person. This is
Mhm.
you're an actual business. You're you're not here, and your reputation is important to you. That's why I assume that also played a big part of it. You want persons to
Mhm.
feel safe coming to that platform, and I think that is where outside of it being central, the next priority is it being safe. So I think those other places will always have a place. However, we need something safe, reliable, central. I think that's
What do
what your
you think?
platform does.
And thank you for that. What do you think about? And this was not on my list. This is not on my question list, but because you said it, and I've been hearing a lot of buzz, and right now it looks like Guyana is starting to really tighten down on this whole licensing thing, or they're working on it. They want to make sure that these agents are licensed. And that's something that we've integrated in our platform also. And it's going to actually get a little more heavy as Guyana moves forward. We're gonna make sure we're gonna put it even more in there. And to be frank with you, we've even decided we just made this decision that the people who can show us their actual license, their listings are going to be pushed towards the top. And the reason why is because we need people that come on Guyana Home Hub to trust the site, just like you
Mhm.
said. And
Mm.
we're not going to deny anybody, just like anybody else. But we do ask for those references. We do look for properties that you're already listing. We even look at your social media. I know how many properties. I don't know how many you got total, but I know you got a lot. And that's a
Mm.
trust indicator. And when I
Mm.
talk to the other agents, if I come to your office and you got signs and stuff, you're not spending that money for nothing. So we have to do our own due diligence, but we are definitely looking forward to the day for not just for us, but for all Guyanese, whereas they will go to a licensed real estate agent And that licensed real estate agent, everything from background checks, which I see they do that, police clearances, to making sure they're paying their taxes or whatever they're doing. You just, and I have nothing to do with that part. I don't want nobody, but it's still, it legitimizes that you're doing business the right way. And that means when people spend their money with you, they know that they're going to get what they're supposed to get. And that way, if you don't, they have a way to report you. You have to suffer the consequences of not doing it, just like you would in a lot of other, like I said, so-called developed countries. There are consequences and repercussions behind selling real estate that's not yours, including jail time, flat out. Like you just can't do it. It's not you. You can do it if you want, but you get caught, you in some big trouble. So I'll go ahead and move on. It says, I guess the next question here, it says, what would you tell a young Guyanese professional who says, I'm just going to buy some real estate when I retire in Guyana?
Why? First of all, let's say if you're currently young and we're talking 40 years old, do you know you'll be able to afford real estate in Guyana in 40 years?
Ooh.
One.
So you're saying a 25-year-old guy that lives here in Guyana or here in the States or lives in London or lives in Toronto, and he's, oh man, I just go back, I go back when I get a little older, I'm gonna save some money up, save a few bucks and go to Guyana and buy some real estate when I turn 55. What's gonna happen to him?
I'm gonna say real estate property, it's a finite resource. So by the time there's this thing, when you double back, I'm charging double. Yep. That's what is gonna happen to you. When you double back,
Tiffany, double's probably not even the word, because Tiffany, I've seen some real estate that I saw a few years ago and somebody told me it was 12 million. Then I came back and they said, oh, it's 40 million or 50 million for a piece of land. I'm like, huh? I'm like, how did it go up that quick?
That's right.
Explain that to me. What?
That's what's happening. It's a strictly supply and demand issue. If it is, because the market will regulate itself. So if it is that it was 12 before and no one would buy it at 12, then that owner will reduce to 8 to 10 million. If at 45 there are still buyers, that price is going to stabilize or go higher, because supply and demand never lies. There is, and we have so many international investors and purchasers now. You're not just competing against the Guyanese counterpart. You're not competing we're competing with Uncle Joe from Victoria. You're competing with someone from Dubai. You're competing.
They're all money too. They got all money too.
Right. So that being the case, if you don't have to invest a lot now, but dip your toe in, dip a finger in, start off with smaller builds and projects, because real estate will never be as cheap as it is today.
Wow.
Tomorrow, it increases. It always increases in value. So this is my warning.
Okay, you heard that, young folks. So all you young folks, I'm going to say 40 and under, because 40 is young to me. So I'm going to say 40 and younger. If you have not bought property in Guyana, I'm here with an expert. Tiffany is telling you, I don't know what you're waiting on, because you're going to be in trouble. And you're going to be your hands out trying to figure out where you're going to live, going back to Guyana and living with your cousins, right?
And you also have an advantage. What's different from that? What differentiates you from those international investors who don't have any ties to Guyana is that you could ask your cousin, uncle, brother, etc., what's selling in the area that you guys grew up in, what's available. So there's a way for you to get into the market, probably at a reduced price point. So take advantage, use up the advantages that you have.
Wow. And thank you for that. They needed to hear that. Now, you as an attorney,
yes,
what's the biggest legal mistake that families make and end up losing their property?
I won't call it a legal mistake. I call it a mistake that covers everything. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to your property here in Guyana. From a legal perspective, if it is that, or you're maybe only paying the rates and taxes, but you haven't been home for 40 years, no one is checking on the property, no one sometimes you know your mother had a property, but you're not even sure where it is. It opens the door for someone to come sit on your property. We have something called adverse possession here in Guyana. It means if a person comes and lives at your property for 12 years and no one does anything about it, no one says anything about it, they can apply to the court to get that property in their name.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And their
and
checks
you
and
mean to tell
balance,
and the court can go along with that, or they do? I'm assuming because it's the
they
law.
it is literally the law. There's a process for it, there's a legal process for it. No, their checks and balances, the person
Mhm.
who's coming to do that has to prove certain things to the court, but it is a totally legitimate legal process. And it came about like decades ago, not decades, hundreds of years ago, where the country was underdeveloped. And they wanted people to just come and set up shop and apply and take up possession. So that's where that comes from. But now they take it up, shop of possession at your auntie place that you haven't been to in 40 years. So that is one way where the law will help someone take your property away from you. Two
Wow.
is that you're not paying attention to the common ailments because nothing loses a property faster than lack of maintenance. So you'll the house lock up and you think, oh, it will remain in that state for that 40 years. It will not. It will
Mm.
deteriorate. The bugs, wherever you're living in, the bugs and wildlife and and the plants, it's their home now. So
And, and we
yeah.
all know everything grows fast in Guyana. A lot of rain, a lot of sun.
The climate is perfect for it. It's perfect. So as long as so ignoring that lack of maintenance, that'll lose your house. What will also lose your house if it is that there is no sort of protection from like the two common things that tear down houses, which is fire and flooding. If you're in certain parts of Guyana, if it is that you don't specifically guard against those two things, a lot of persons can lose their house like that. And actually, one more thing, if it is that you have a mortgage on a property and you sending it to your cousin for them to pay the mortgage and you're not asking any questions, you're not asking for receipts,
Oh
that
wow.
and that sort of thing,
I
you
can
lose your
imagine
property
that.
like that.
I
So,
can
but
imagine that
basically,
happens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So basically, it's under
Mm.
the umbrella of you're not paying attention, and that's how you
Mm.
lose your property. You have to pay attention.
And I'm glad we talked about that. Now I'm gonna roll back into this whole property management thing again.
Mhm.
What are landlords failing to do right now? What do you see that they're failing to do? I know this is your category right here. What are they doing wrong? I mean, what are they doing?
I think a lot of them are stuck in the past where you would just say, "I have a house for rent." Someone will come and give you some money, and you'd let them move into your property. You can't do that right now. Absolutely not. There's been a bit of an explosion in the population. It's not so much like before, I think it was village centered. You knew everyone and everyone knew you. That is not the case anymore. And because of that, you need to put in some protections at the very minimum. I am harping is such a strong word. I'm pleading with my landlords. Ask for someone's proof of ID, ask for the proof of income. If you do nothing else,
Mm.
you do those two things, you're already ahead of 50% of the landlords in Guyana. You've already started to build that wall of protection around your property by doing those two things. Another thing I think landlords aren't doing, they are not, they're not having, they're not asking the right questions when they're talking to potential tenants. They're not asking them, how long have you been in this job that you're here? Is this person still on probation?
Mm.
Could they get knocked off in 2 months? They're not
Mm.
asking, why is it that you're leaving your past apartment? Did they get put out for not paying the rent?
Mm. So
They're
they
not
don't ask.
asking.
Some people don't ask those questions, really.
Ah, I'm on some of these interviews, and it's like you said, some persons just don't know. Especially if you're a first time landlord, you just don't know what to ask. And even if you're an experienced landlord, a lot of them are doing it based off of I like this well, how do I you say it? Misprotection.
I,
They're
I would
like,
ask you what that mean, but I didn't have to because my wife is Guyanese. But
correct. So they're doing off of vibes. So that's like major. So getting proof of ID, asking the right questions, and the next thing you need, and the final thing I think would be a solid contract. It doesn't need to be 30 pages. Mhm.
wow, wow.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Uh,
I'm gonna wrap it up because we've been talking really good. So I got two more questions for you.
yeah.
If Tiffany's mother called from New York and said, Tiffany, I found this property, really nice property on Facebook. They told me I should go ahead and send this money. How would you respond? We talking about somebody personal, and I'm saying this because you know there are people there. They get that question from their mom and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So what would you tell them to say? Flat out, what would you tell them?
Stop. The first thing I tell you, stop, 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 stop. Because I know you, I'm not gonna charge you a consultation fee. Send me the copy of the transport. Send me a copy of the person who's selling it. Send me their ID. And so
Mm,
that's my first question to you. Great, they're selling it. You since you want to send them the money, I know you like the price point and I know you like the area. So
mhm,
that's not a real estate problem. We're now in the legalities of this.
mhm.
Send me those two documents. Let's clarify that that is in order. And then let's talk about the agreement to sale. Let me put some protections in there for you. If this person changes their mind and doesn't want to sell the property anymore, what happens to your deposit?
Mm, mm,
If you
mm.
have a mortgage on the property and you're also going through the bank to have a mortgage, do you have any of the documents from their bank about the disclosure of the mortgage? Because oftentimes your bank buys over the mortgage from their bank. So where's the documentation for that? Are there
Mm,
multiple persons on this transporter title? Or is just this one person selling? Because if they have a wife whose name on the title, she has to agree to, or the sale
mm,
doesn't happen.
mm, mm.
So or is it is once you do the checks at the registry, does someone else have a claim to this property? Was another agreement lodged for this property? Does a creditor have a claim to this property? We in the legalities of it now. You don't have to
Okay.
talk to me. You should. You don't have to talk to me. But you need to speak to some lawyer just to get the basics. You're not paying them a whole lot of bunch of money. A consultation can never be more than losing the millions you're going to invest.
Thank you
It's
so much for that.
mhm,
And I thought I had two more questions, but I'm going to add one more since you said that. And
mhm.
this is for not just even for me, but for other diaspora and people that are not from Guyana. What is the actual timeline? I'm not going to ask about the process because they need to call you and consult with you for that because I don't want to. We don't want to give it all away. People have to pay for this valuable information that you're giving. But what type of timeline should people be looking at if they wanted to buy a property that's already there, or they wanted to buy a piece of land? And I started on the 1st of April. What
Mhm.
is the timeline like for me to actually acquire either that land or that property if I was purchasing as an outsider or even for a diaspora? Because they need to know too.
Okay. That's my liar. It depends. One, if it's a transport or if it's a title. Because there are different processes for those two forms of ownership. So on average, I would say if you have a title, conservatively 90 days.
Okay.
That because you're not only talking about the lawyer drafts and then files, you're talking about you have to go to GRA, you have to go through the valuation office, you have to go to the deeds registry, you got to pay NDC compliances, um, and sometimes you need to get a plan done, dependent on if it's a sublot of an area or not. So if you're talking about all of those institutions, you got cater their timelines. Yeah.
Mm.
So conservatively 90 days. If it's a transport, a little bit more, maybe around 4 months. And that's usually like that's like an optimal time. It can usually take longer, especially if you're not here, especially if you don't have persons on the ground who you know, trust, and have cash resources here.
I'm glad you said that. That way I have some clarity myself because I've
Mm.
heard different stories, but we want to talk to people that we trust, and again, that's why I asked you that question. So folks, you all heard it. I'm gonna just let you say the months one more time. I'm gonna ask you the question one more time, and you can just say the months. How long does it take, on average, conservatively, if you have a title versus you don't have a title or you have a transport instead? So real quick, what is that one more time?
An average of 5 months.
Okay, great. So everybody heard it. Don't say you don't know. You heard it right here from the expert. So all that old thinking you should have your property in 30 days, in
Ah,
15 days. I don't
mm,
know, if somebody tells you that on Facebook or Instagram,
run. Just run away.
yeah, just run. Just run.
Because either they're lying or they really don't know. And either two are equally as scary.
Absolutely. Here's my final question, and I want you to finish the sentence. Guyana real estate in 5 years will be.
Guyana real estate in 5 years will be unrecognizable to what it is today.
Unrecognizable. I'm
Hmm.
assuming. So you're telling me 5 years? That's really short. I did that on purpose. And you're telling me unrecognizable?
Yes. Um, if we're basing it on what I'm tracking now, with the level of construction, the speed of it, the change in styles. Um, if you come back here in 5 years, we're in 2026, you come back here in 2031, um, I honestly don't think you'll be able to recognize some buildings, some streets, especially in those country areas. Like you go to quarantine now, or you go to Berbice now, come back in 5 years and tell me if you remember the dam that you used to walk down it, down as a child. I doubt it.
Wow. And I
Hmm.
believe it. I've seen that before. I've been to cities here in the States before, and I've gone back 7, 8 years later, and I can't find my way around because streets have changed. And I noticed you guys got the Heroes Highway.
Ah,
And to see that massive road with all these street lights, and I'm imagining how many roads are going to start branching off of Heroes Highway, how many exits there are going to be because you got subdivisions, you got shopping plazas, you're going to have all this stuff coming from all over the place. So I thank you for that, and I appreciate you coming on and taking the time out and sharing with us your experience and your knowledge. I want you to say real quick for the people that don't know you and the people that came in later or they're just seeing a clip of this, where do they go to follow you so they can get more information? And then after you tell them how to follow you, I want you to give whatever information you need to give them to reach out to you.
all right, great. To get in contact with me, we're on most social media pages: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as Duran Property Management Guyana. We have a red and white logo, marked DPM. Pretty easy to find us. And if it is that you'd like to talk to one of our agents, you may not get me. You can call 646 or WhatsApp 646-8072 or 705-9608.
And of
And
course, that's
our
five, and that's of course that's 592 area code, right?
that is correct. The Guyanese area code plus sign 592
Okay, so +9 592.
646 8072.
All right. So you guys heard it. If you guys want to talk to Tiffany directly and you want to talk about having your property managed, I'm going to talk to Tiffany about some things when I get off because I need some help. Um, I need some help. And not only that, I'm hoping that one day Tiffany and I will actually be able to team up with Guyana Home Hub and hopefully we can get some type of management side. And hopefully Tiffany runs the whole thing. That way everybody's real happy and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, Tiffany, she's trusted. She knows what she's doing. Hopefully we can create something crazy like you go on the portal, everybody pay their rent, the landlords are happy, the consumers are happy. And that'll be the future. But we right now we're gonna do what we're doing, and I appreciate everything once again. And I just want to say thanks a lot.
This was um, not only enlightening, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, you have a good one, Tiffany.
All right, same. Bye.
All right, bye bye.